What's up?
Hello.
What's
Hey,
up,
What's happening?
everybody? It's Guest
Oh my
Wednesday.
God.
And we
Jake,
like,
what are you doing here? Oh my
how
God.
the
I
hell
don't
did
know.
you
I
get
just
here?
woke
It's
up.
great.
We just
Just woke up.
found this guy in the streets of After Effects, and he was like, "Yeah, I want to come on the show. It sounds fun. Let's do it."
I live in the back alley.
Yeah. He was just loitering outside of the office or something.
We've just been living one alley over, and we just never hung out for some reason. I don't know
Yeah.
why. What up, Jack? What up, Tutu? Glad to see y'all. Some people will hop in just a second. What is pop? Oh, what up, Jake? We got JakeInMotion in the chat, and we have a
That's
Jake on
crazy.
stream. Wait a second. Hold on.
What a coincidence.
What a weird coincidence, man.
Gotta
Well,
show up for that guy.
we're gonna do our usual thing today. We've got some crits and some wrecks, of course, but Jake, we also have some hard hitting questions for you that we just gotta know. And Noah has them pulled up right now, and I don't, so he'll have to start.
Let's do it.
Well, first off, we're just curious because everybody seems to have an interesting story on how they found motion design. So we're curious how you got into motion.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, how did you discover that you would prefer to be more in the educational space of that rather than more in like the working and the freelancing and the being in an agency and all that jazz?
Great question. I'll try to be as brief as possible because I can talk for hours. But I got into it at a very early age. My oldest brother is about 8 years older than me. And so when he was in college, he was coming home and introducing me to After Effects. He's like, check out Premiere, here's Photoshop. And so I was learning when I was around 11, 12, 13, how to use Photoshop and that kind of stuff.
What a sweet older brother.
Yeah, I kind of owe everything to him. And he lives near me now, which is awesome. But so very early on, I learned how to put lightsabers on top of video that I shot. And I was
Nice.
like, well,
That is the
like,
most
this is
important
it.
thing.
Yeah,
I think to know.
and it was all driven by Andrew Kramer at Video Copilot. At that point, no YouTube, but Andrew was putting up tutorials, and like I even remember distinctly, like, how are you recording your screen? Like, I don't even know how that's possible. So anyway, that was the era of internet education that I was learning from in the beginning. And so I went through high school. I was getting into like print design, video production. And by the time I was ready for college, I decided I wanted to either do video editing or motion design. And I was completely self-taught in both. I had an editing class. I learned a little bit about video production, and I went to a one-semester film program. But as far as motion design goes, I was totally self-taught.
Yeah.
And it was really just After Effects. I didn't learn any animation principles. I didn't know anything about what was going into the keyframes I was making. I just worked at it hard enough until I was happy with the way it looked, but I didn't have any foundation. So that's what got me into it. I ended up getting a job as a motion designer right after graduation, just because somebody knew somebody who was running an audio like booth and heard we need an After Effects guy. So I made a reel of all made up stuff, sent it over, and they said, yeah, this looks like you can do what we need. Can you start in 2 weeks? And that ended up being like a permalancing job that I had for almost 5 years in LA.
Wow.
And I was a big generalist. Like I did mostly motion design. Anytime something motion design was needed, I was pretty much the one to do it. But I also, like I said, I knew graphic design, so I was putting pitch decks together. I knew how to run a camera. I learned how to run a slow-mo camera. So I was all over the place. I was even in front of the camera a couple of times. It was really a fun, crazy job. My boss was wild and whack. So I got my hand in a lot of different areas, but I realized like motion design is really what I want to do. In the last year of working there, this was in like 2014, I started freelancing on the nights and weekends through connections that I had made of producers coming in and out of the production studio I worked at. And at the same time, my wife encouraged me to teach a class on Skillshare. At this point, there were like 3 classes on animation on the platform. And she knew that I always enjoyed teaching. I just never, ever saw it as a viable source of income, as a career that I could sustain. But this was like, well, it seems fun. I could kind of just try it. There's not really high stakes. And what pushed me over the edge was that they did a teach challenge where the prize was a MacBook Air. And I was like, well, I might as well try. And so at that point, it was an application process. I had to outline a class and submit it.
Oh, I see.
And that was all I had to do to enter the contest. And I ended up winning. And so I was like, well, crap, I guess this is cool. I got a laptop, but now I actually have to make the class. Like I was on the hook to make the class. And so I kind of was just like brought in like the current of teaching and ended up loving it. People really enjoyed my class, and I just let it sit there for about a year while I was freelancing. And at the end of that year, I decided I was going to go freelance full time and start working at home. And so I left my job. And 20 minutes after I told my boss that I was leaving, Skillshare emailed me. They're like, "Hey, we're starting this thing called the Top Teachers Program. We want you to be part of it. Will you teach another class? We'll work with you."
Whoa.
I was like, "Well, that's pretty great timing."
Yeah, I'd say so.
So yeah, so like, I mean, I honestly, even after that year of having a successful class at Skillshare, I still felt the imposter syndrome of like, why would anybody want to learn from me? I don't have credentials. Like, I don't have big name projects. I don't
Yeah.
have a master's. So, but with their encouragement, I was like, okay, we'll give it another shot. And the reception of the second class was just as good. I doubled my following in about a month. And I was like, okay, this is really fun. I'm seeing stuff being made by students based on what I, put out there. So at the beginning, freelance was up here, Skillshare was down here, but it snowballed. And eventually, it wasn't that freelance was going down, but Skillshare just started getting bigger and bigger. And then School of Motion, Joey reached out to me, and he wanted to kind of test drive me, and I'd made a tutorial, and then I started TAing for one of the classes, and eventually I was like, okay, Joey, let's do something bigger, and I made Explainer Camp with them.
Yeah.
At that point, really teaching was taking over, and then I was still enjoying freelancing. Like, I loved the switch from working for somebody else and doing whatever he says to I get to choose my clients now.
Yeah.
But then I had a similar shift where I was like, I enjoy working for clients and getting to pick what I work on and making my own schedule. But at the same time, I like working for myself completely and choosing absolutely everything I do if
Right.
that can make me money. So why wouldn't I do that? So eventually I narrowed it down to like one or two of my freelance clients that I really enjoyed working with. They really liked me. They paid well. And I was like, I'm scaling back a little bit on my freelance. I'm not completely unavailable, but teaching is kind of my thing now. So I was still dabbling in it. But by the time I made my second course at School of Motion, I was like, okay, I'm going to tell my freelance clients I'm not available anymore. And that's when I started teaching full time. And here we are now. It's been, I think, 9 years since I started teaching on Skillshare. I have over 30 classes, I believe, 3 classes at School of Motion.
Jeez.
I started my YouTube channel 4 years ago and didn't do anything with it after about 10 tutorials. I just let it sit there because I didn't know what I was going to do with it.
Yeah.
But I had like 40,000 subscribers. I was like, well, I should probably do something with that.
Maybe.
And yeah, and Matt from Mount Mograph, actually. I live in Denver. He lives in Denver. So we met up when I moved here, and he strongly encouraged me to start that YouTube channel and to get on a platform where I could say anything I wanted, because on Skillshare, I can't advertise School of Motion.
Right.
School of Motion, obviously, I don't have like a real space to say, go take my Skillshare classes, but it's the same thing. It's like a conflict of interest, even though it's like Joey's totally cool about it.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't feel threatened at all, but it's just like, yeah, I can't just say.
It's just kind of an awkward position, you know?
Yeah, exactly. On YouTube, I can say whatever I want. So that's when, yeah, I about, is it like a little over a year ago now, I started the Effects of After Effects series. I was trying to basically one-up Joey when he did the 30 days of After Effects. I was like, what can I do like that, but on a bigger scale? I was like, oh, all of the effects. Like, we'll just do that. Nobody's ever done that.
Yeah.
Holy crap, was that a big undertaking. But it doubled my following. Again, I went from 40,000 to 85,000 in 8 months, and I've been loving it. That's when Adam from Battle Axe reached out to me near the end of that series. Because he was transitioning from working at Google to just starting his own company and just sticking to that. And he brought me on as lead educator, and I've been able to make YouTube content ever since. It's been amazing.
Oh man, what a ride!
Journey.
Also,
For
it's
real.
it's funny that you mentioned that that relationship with client work. So where, I mean, I worked at a small marketing company before we started Ruvi, and it was very much the same thing. Like, I was taking whatever clients they came with and whatever, and sure, that was fine. But then we start Ruvi, and it's like, oh, cool, like we get to really run our own thing, and like that's fun. But at the same time, like, we also love doing the content too. And we were talking about it last night. We were really just like, that really is the place where we just kind of get to do exactly what we want, and nobody can tell us otherwise, and it feels pretty great. Like, we've gotten to a position where we have clients now, like that small group like you were talking about too, but it's just so exciting. Like, when we get to set aside 4 or 5 hours on a calendar one day of the week to just do a like After Effects game show or something like that,
Yeah.
like that is the most fun we have out of the entire week. It's just so cool. I love it.
It's
Yeah,
so
man.
much dang fun. I'm sure you get that.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. I didn't know that you had like also a little bit of the graphic design experience, and then you've dabbled in camera and all
Yeah.
that jazz.
I mean,
I
and that
was-
goes all the way back to the beginning when as a kid, I was running around with mini
Yeah.
DV camera, mini VHS even at the beginning, back in those early days, and figuring out how do I get the VHS onto the computer. I mean, I didn't even have a computer at the beginning. I was making little stop motion animations with my toys in my bedroom. I mean,
Oh yeah.
there was a stop motion button on our big VHS camcorder that would take a sixth of a second of video every time you pressed it. And that's how I made stop motion. Like that was my first little thing that I did. So yeah.
That's cool that it had an actual
That's
button on it just for
incredible.
that, though. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
It must have felt like a superpower. Just
It
like,
did,
man.
here I go.
Yeah.
I just had this old camera that we would set up like on a little book or something and like try our best not to move it and be like,
Yeah.
and then move our
Yeah.
little Lego piece a little bit and go,
Yes.
oh yeah, those stop motion videos. I gotta find some of those.
The screen recording stuff always baffled me too. The amount of times I must have Googled when I was like 10 or 11, like how to record whatever game I was playing at the time or something. And then I used like Bandicam and I had like the watermark and could only film 10 minutes or something like that. And then for Christmas, my parents bought me the $30 license of Fraps and I could finally have my
Yes.
FPS counter in the corner. I was like, I'm so cool right now. Let's do this.
Yep.
Those
I
were-
remember those days.
I miss those days. We should
I'm
just record
Good.
videos with old encoders like that at some point,
my
just
God,
for
yeah.
fun. It'd be so.
I would
fun
love to
do
figure
that.
out how to hook up like a webcam, but it's just a really old VHS camera or something like that.
Yes.
That would be incredible.
That'd be
Yeah.
cool.
And the mic to match. Anyway, I'm surprised that like the YouTube thing kind of came a little bit after you started going with Skillshare. That's an intrigue to me.
Started way too late. Yeah, for sure. Like I deeply like Ben Marriott is the perfect example. I started my YouTube channel, didn't really do anything with it. Ben started his YouTube channel and posted every week, and look at him now. I mean,
Yep.
he's killing it. And I've had multiple conversations with him. Like we're in, I'd consider us friends at this point. So we chat quite a bit about how he handles things and how he's dealing with selling his own courses now. So it's like I'm just basically copying everything he did at this point, and I'm trying to follow in his footsteps. I just wish I would have done it from the beginning. I never really thought, again, just like I didn't think teaching was going to be a viable source of income. I didn't know you could really make money on YouTube. And I don't know why. I just always assumed there's no way you can make that much money on ads. And that's when I
Right.
learned, like, well, it depends on what you're putting out, what your
Right.
niche is. Niche? I don't know. How do you guys say that? Niche, or
Niche?
niche? I've always said niche.
I go
it's-
with niche.
Yeah, I think it's technically niche, but I think niche sounds way cooler, so
Yeah.
I say niche.
Absolutely. Okay,
Niche-
so
niche
anyway,
is so
whatever your
dumb.
niche is, like you can earn more depending on what you're doing, and so especially with sponsorships, there's
Oh, yeah.
something I also learned later on that like that's actually a viable thing to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's lots of different things that I'm constantly learning about and branching out and trying to diversify my income with, because like obviously as a freelancer you don't know when the next job's going to come in.
Yeah.
So that's why with Skillshare it was like, oh, that's nice to have that kind of as a backup, and eventually it took over. So yeah.
How long did it take to have the parity between your freelancing and the income you were making from teaching? What was the process like to getting that to be around the same amount of revenue?
Probably took about 2 years after I went freelance. So that would have been my third year at Skillshare.
Okay.
So I probably had like 5-6 classes at that point. The growth was pretty big. I at Skillshare like pretty quick, and I think it's because Skillshare just started getting big. Like I said, when I started teaching, there were only like 2 or 3 other classes on animation
Right.
on the platform. So when I post this first course on text animation and After Effects, like a lot of people watched it. And a year after that is when they went from you pay for every class you take to subscription model. When that happened, I mean, their platform exploded because you, as the consumer, could get a
It's way
subscription
more
and
accessible.
just have access to everything.
Yeah.
And so, as teachers, we were actually a little nervous that we were going to lose money, but it just went up because so many more people were like, "Oh, this is such a good deal," and so they were getting more money, which turned into teachers getting more money. So yeah, it took probably about 2 years after that point to where I was like, okay, Skillshare is like legit income at this point.
Yeah.
I could probably start saying no more often to my freelance work, because at the beginning, when I said yes to absolutely everything, those first 6 months were rough because I did dumb work. Like I took clients that needed a YouTube intro for $250 and I didn't have a contract and I didn't like no revision limit. I did this crazy job for an app that was launching that had to do with movie tickets or something. And this dude, every time he came back, it was just like 6 extra paragraphs of notes, like critiquing how many pixels this thing should move. And I was like,
wow.
I learned some pretty hard lessons those first 3 months or 6 months of freelancing.
I mean, I guess at least you got some of them out of the way. Jeez.
Yeah.
That sounds insane.
Never again.
I don't blame you. That's awful.
That's incredible.
Wow. What a...
Well, that's all very interesting. I'm curious, like, where are we headed apart from, yoinking Ben Marriott's kind of YouTube style there? Like, where are we headed? How's it going?
Well, I mean, wherever we are headed, I'm going to be teaching you whatever it is. So that's my plan.
Fair.
I mean, honestly,
Cheers to
so
that.
yeah, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but I really did learn that my passion is teaching. I
Right.
really enjoy being able to help somebody understand something, especially if it's like a complex thing. If I can break it down for somebody to where after I'm done talking, you understand. Like like that was a thing with like cryptocurrency. When I did an NFT, I jumped on that bandwagon. I sold 2 NFTs. I was like, not for me, but I did it. I had to explain to people what that meant. And so I was like, I got to figure out how can I explain what crypto is and what a blockchain is and how this ties into NFTs. So I was like, if I can break down a concept like that into language that somebody like my mom, I can explain it to my mom and she'll understand it, that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I've been pursuing. And as far as like what I'm doing right now, I'm pushing my YouTube channel as hard as I can. I want that to be where you see my content as much as possible. And I think the audience there is very beginner to intermediate oriented, which I think is my sweet spot. I think I connect with that level really well, and my teaching style lends itself to that level of education. I've done a few advanced topics on Skillshare, but as soon as you go from intermediate to advanced, there is such a smaller pool of people to be consuming and learning from that content. So I would much rather leave that to the specialized artists who are like extremely like just expert level on that one thing. You go make that course. I'm going to leave it to you to do that, because the people who are at that level, they're going to want to learn from you anyway. They're not going to want to learn from me, where in my case, I generally am learning something and then teaching it. It's like I'm not specializing in this thing for 15 years and now I'm going to share all my secrets. It's like, no, I learned about Mogerts and I've got a pretty good system down. Now I'm going to share how I think you should be working with Mogerts or something like that. So that's kind of my playing field, I think, of YouTube. That's what I'm marketing myself towards. And then figuring out what's next, I don't know. But Battle Axe, I mean, it's been so awesome being able to be part of a company that I was already telling people, like, you need to get these tools. Like, they will pay for themselves in their first use. Like, and then Adam messaged me on Instagram one day and he's like, hey, I'm writing up this job description. I'm halfway through it and I realize I'm just describing you. Can we have a chat?
That's amazing.
I was like, okay, yeah. Because at that time, honestly, I was really protective of my time. I was like, I don't want to get involved in anything else. I don't know. But I was like, but it's Adam. Like, I'd only interacted with him a few times. And I was like, but it's Adam from Battle Axe. Like, Rubber House. Like, I should hear him out. And so, yeah, we had a call. And at the end of our first call, I was like, he pitched me this whole thing, and I was like, I left the call thinking, how in the world is this beneficial for him? Like, I don't understand. It sounds like way too good for me, and I don't understand what he's getting out of it. And so I talked it over with my wife that day, and then the next day we came back with a follow-up call, and I just asked him. I was point blank. I was like, how is this beneficial for you? And we went over it, and it ended up making a lot more sense after that discussion, and it is an extremely mutually beneficial relationship. The number one part of his job that he hated the most was tutorials. He doesn't enjoy that part. He wants to develop the tools. He doesn't enjoy having to tell people like how to use them.
Well,
he doesn't.
It's got to be annoying and difficult, I assume, because he just spent all this time like in the nooks and crannies of this thing. So how is he going to get back to that like high level? How do I just use this? You know?
Yeah. And so, I mean, right now I'm in the exact like moment of why he hired me, because Rubber Hose 3 is coming out very soon. And so I'm making all of the user guide videos, the release videos for that right now. And yesterday we had a call, and I kind of just had the same kind of discussion where it's like, I love being able to take what you made with all these amazing features and be able to break it down and explain step by step, so that when this launches, like people are gonna be able to watch these videos and instantly be like, I get it. And I love that feeling and being able to be that part of this whole process.
That sounds like the most symbiotic relationship.
It is, man.
Also,
it is.
I mean, it's Battle Axe. They've saved everybody so many hours.
Right?
It's just hours and hours and hours. Like you're just working with the saints of MoGraph right now. You know?
Yes. The
True.
grin. Yeah,
Godly
man, it's
stuff.
awesome.
That's great.
I'm curious. I mean, clearly you have a very deep passion for teaching. Is there any kind of, I guess, analogous or otherwise content that you've always kind of wanted to make, but maybe hasn't always aligned with what you're doing?
That's a good question. I don't think so. Nothing's really coming to mind, because that's one of the things that I love about teaching, is that usually a class, like on Skillshare or a tutorial, is something that I'm excited about. It comes from an idea that's like, oh, I figured out how to do this thing, or I came up with this technique, and I'm like, oh, I want to make a tutorial about that. And so it's like immediately getting to turn this discovery into content that I can share with other people. And I think that's the part I like about the most, is being able to share it, because the feedback that I get, the response from people like, oh my gosh, you saved me so much time. I can't believe I didn't know about this feature in After Effects, or something like that. It's such a rewarding process. So at this point, like that's what I'm riding that wave. I really enjoy what I'm doing now. So there's nothing really that I'm looking at as, man, I wish I could like take time to do this. I guess one example would be, I always thought it'd be cool if I could make a tool for After Effects, because I've made plenty of expressions, rigs, and like set up project files, and even given them away on like some of my Skillshare classes, but they're totally just expression rigs. So it's like you'd have to bring in this project file, and I'd have to show you how do you swap out whatever.
Right.
But then I met Adam. I started working for Adam, and I got up the courage one day to be like, hey, so I made this little expressions rig. Could I hire you to make it a script? And like, I know like I'm working for you, and your whole company is selling scripts, but could I sell a script too? And like I had to build up to asking him to have the confidence to ask him that, but he is the nicest person. He was totally cool about it. And we've come up with a really good system of being able to work together on stuff like that. And that's how Texture Looper came about. And of course, for Adam, like I gave him the project file, and 12 hours later, he had a working script. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
I could have had this the entire time. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just been great. Like being able to have that is like a superpower, of being able to just set and like say, Adam, would we be able to do this? Or like another example is when I came on board the first week, he asked me, he's like, hey, if you have any ideas for things about After Effects that you wish worked a different way, or any ideas for tools, let me know. And I gave him like 3 ideas that first week. And that is like what came about was a schmear, which is like using the echo.
God, that's my favorite one.
Noah's a schmearaholic.
That was another example of like, I had this thing set up as a project file with expressions, and I was like, I couldn't figure out how to get it to respond to any movement, just the position property. And I was like, I don't know what the next step would be, but maybe you could figure this out. And again, the next morning, he's like, try this. And it was done. And I was like, okay. And so being able to just have these ideas is a resource for Adam, because, you know, he's tapping into somebody else's brain, and
Right.
I'm able to see from my viewers like what problems are out there, and then he's able to just poof, spit it out, and it works, and then that gives Battle Axe more content. And,
Right.
yeah. So
It's
just been awesome.
totally beneficial. I
Yeah.
see that. And it's just, on your end, you also just have an After Effects genie that you can sort of
Exactly.
just rub the lamp
Yeah.
and be like, yes, I'd like this wish, please.
I
Yeah.
feel like everybody wishes for someone that could just make After Effects better.
Yeah.
You actually have that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That's
just saw
pretty
Adam
sweet.
in the chat. He said, "We are Voltron." That is so true.
Speaking of the chat, we've got a couple questions that I wanna run through. I've seen a few. Johan, one of our favorite freelancers, says, "Do you
That's
miss
Johan.
having client work or making personal projects?"
Yeah. So every now and then, client work was fun. There were projects, especially the fun ones, obviously. Yes, I missed that. Every now and then I got to do something that was definitely for the real, one for the real, not for the meal.
Yep.
So like I got to do like a lyric video for my band, my favorite band's bass player. He had a side project. I did 2 lyric videos for him. That was like amazing. I got to interact with my favorite bass player. So like that kind of stuff was really fun. And then like making personal projects, I still try to do that. It just kind of comes out now in the form of tutorials.
Right.
And every now and then Instagram posts or something like that. So that kind of fulfills that that hole, that desire to be able to continue doing personal stuff. It's just coming out in a different form than most motion designers.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like
Yeah.
making content has just become that outlet for us too. It's just fun
Yeah.
to be able to make we grew up watching YouTube and things like that. So it's just fun to be able to be like, I'm doing that now. That's great. Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that plaque right there. I
like
never
that
thought I
means
would
a
have one
lot,
of those. Like that was a huge deal, and it still is to me. Like it's crazy that is a thing that I can achieve by sharing knowledge with people. Like it's so much fun.
I don't know about you, but the fact that I can go to the YouTube Studio page and just see like a plus however many number of subscribers each day, like
Right.
whether I haven't posted or whatever, is absurd to me. I'm like, YouTube is still like finding new people who are watching
Right.
this content. Like, how are there more people that are willing to watch this? It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just such a cool
And that is
feeling.
another great thing about I think this area of YouTube is that most of my content is evergreen. So I have videos that are 4 years old that are still getting thousands of views a month.
Right.
And people are benefiting from it. And that's what I love. It's very different from like somebody who's like a lifestyle vlogger who's just making a video every day. And
Right.
it's like, well, I might watch it that day, but I'm never coming back to it.
And if people aren't like already knowing who this person is, they are completely lost in this
Yeah.
person's life story. We don't know where we are. Like, I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I still don't really know who David Dobrik is. I'm sorry. Never figured that out.
Now, Vishav Aurora in the chat says, "Hey Jake, what's the secret to constant hairstyle for all of your videos? We gotta know. We gotta know the tips and
It's
tricks.
so
here."
consistent.
You guys
So
must
consistent.
relate to this, but I don't know. Right now, I definitely have morning hair, so there's a difference throughout the day. I've noticed with my hair, like it'll be very. I mean, obviously, I put a product in to keep it, in check.
Right.
But throughout the day, it'll get a little more loose and a little more natural. And I feel like once I'm like 2 to 3 hours into my day, that's when I'm like peak hair time. And I'm
That's
like,
when
okay,
we
camera
record,
ready.
okay.
Let's do this.
I've got my recording hour based on when my
Yeah.
hair is at its
Yeah.
peak.
That's perfect. Yeah.
But here's a funny thing. My barber, we talk about YouTube every time I'm in the chair.
Yeah.
And so he subscribes and he notices, he watches my videos like, oh, Jake needs a haircut.
That's amazing.
So I get crap from him every time I go in to get a haircut late.
Oh, dude, I need to do the same thing with mine because maybe she'll be able to watch the streams or something and just be able to text me and be like, all right, it's time. Because like she's
already
booked
knows
out
what
for
to do.
weeks. Like I
Right,
need
that's
one.
my problem too.
I need one now, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I have to wait until like next week or
weeks,
something
yeah.
to be able to even get in. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
That's absolutely the way to go.
I'll get through one more question, and then we can hop into one of ours. Well, we've kind of already answered that one. So, okay, here we go. Hey Jake, I really love your tutorials of explaining each effect. Any plan on doing tutorials on some kind of motion design in the future, like text effects or faux 3D, etc.?
Yes. Absolutely.
I mean,
There you go.
I thought that there was, when I glanced at the question, I thought it was going to be like, what do you think of the future of motion design? But
Yeah.
it kind of, towards the end, once I read it, I was like, yes, that would make sense to just do that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, to answer your question and about the future, like in terms of what I'm teaching, at least, it is very spontaneous. Like I have a list of tutorial ideas that I can always go to and pull from, but more often than not, it's like, whoa, like this thing just came to mind, or I figured this out. My last video is a great example, Klutz GPT. I was dabbling with ChatGPT, talking to Nick Greenewalt about it, Motion by Nick. And like his video, obviously, that's what inspired me because he made the first one where it's like After Effects scripts from
Right.
ChatGPT. And I was like, no way, it actually works. And so I was playing with it, talking to Adam about it. And he was the one who was like, hey, so like this guy is developing an extension that lets you use ChatGPT and After Effects and automatically run the scripts. It's like, no way. And the next day it was released. And so I just got super on the ChatGPT train,
Yeah.
testing out Klutz GPT. And I was like, I got to make a video about this. And so I spent a week like figuring it out and making that video, which by the way, most of my tutorials are very like, I've got my OBS set up. So it's like very easy. Whoa, excuse me, that was disgusting. Very easy for me to just hit record and just, go. I just talk. I do everything ad-libbed. I'll outline a tutorial, but I won't script it or anything. So
Right.
it feels very natural, I think. And then I edit it. Like I put it right into Premiere. I edit it. The camera is baked into the screen recording, so I don't even have to do any of that stuff. And I can just get it done. Like I turn around a tutorial in a day, no problem. That video with Klutz GPT was, I recorded probably 30 minutes of me talking to the camera. And I was like, how am I going to make this video interesting? And so I had to do so much other work of like, B-roll and screen recordings and funny graphics and stuff. So it just made me appreciate so much like the people who put in that kind of content. The amount of effort that goes into that is exponentially greater than just hitting record on a screen recording of After Effects and teaching you something. So yeah, it was a eye-opening experience. I would like to do more videos like that, but it was definitely like way more substantial in terms of how much time it took.
I totally get that. We, Noah and I tried to edit our own content for, we got like 4 videos out or something like that. And we were like, we just got to get an editor. And so we got an editor, and then we just recently brought on another one because we're like doing big team recordings of things now where there's like 4 people doing this challenge or something and have to cut back and forth between footage. And it's just a mess. I really appreciate them. We would certainly not be able to deal with the just sheer amount of footage and inserts and other stuff that you just have to deal with for content like that. And one thing that I wanted to ask was, I mean, that spontaneity, at least for me, I feel like comes from just a place of passion. Do you feel like that's most of what's driving you? I feel like it's easier oftentimes to just live in that world of like, this is really interesting to me and I'm feeling that right now, as opposed to like, well, I have to make another video, so let's pull from this, or this,
Yeah, no, that's 100% how I feel about it. I'm trying to be very loose with my YouTube channel and not pressuring myself to like, I gotta get a video out this week. Like if there's not something there, I'm gonna spend my time doing something more productive than putting out a low effort video that I'm not excited about. Because I think that is another part of why people have kind of enjoyed my content, is because generally what I'm talking about, I'm excited about. And I think that enthusiasm comes across and gets the viewer excited about it too.
I agree.
Yeah. I think that just makes better content.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm actually curious, going back to that sort of future of motion designing stuff. I'm sure you get this question a little bit, but are there any trends and what are you excited to see in the motion design industry? Is there something, and this can be like visual or it can be, more abstract, but is there something that you're just excited that you've been seeing recently in the motion design industry?
Yeah. Well, I think it's what most people are afraid of right now, and it's AI.
AI?
Like,
Ooh.
honestly, I think that Klutz GPT video, that's what really got me excited about it, because before I figured out how to kind of wrangle the AI, I told Adam, I was like, you're like my personal chat GPT because you can just do, like, I can tell you what I want and you can do it.
Right.
And for simpler things, I can do that now. I don't have to go to anyone. I
Right.
don't have to search Google. I can go to ChatGPT and I could say, hey, like this is an example of something I did last week. In my character rigging process, near the end, I lock and shy all of the artwork so I don't see it because that's not what I need access to.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is a two-step process. I have to select my layers, shy, and then lock. And so I just went to ChatGPT. I was like, write me an After Effects script that shies all of the lock layers. And it said, okay. And so I had my layers locked. I clicked the button and they were shied. And I was like, now I never have to do that two-step process again. It's just like one step, click, done.
Yeah.
So like that kind of ability to be able to just in plain English tell After Effects what I want it to do is something that's really exciting me. If Adobe isn't jumping on that train, like they're crazy. Like
I know.
because I've talked to the guy who made Klutz GPT and it's totally compatible with After Effects, Premiere, Photoshop, Illustrator. So there's potential for this to just, I mean, open up so many workflow like shortcuts that it's like After Effects should be able to do this. Well, it can now if you just tell Klutz GPT and try hard enough, like it will give you code that will probably do what you want it to.
Right.
So I'm really excited about that. I'm also excited about the visual, like image generation side of AI. I got on Midjourney pretty early on, and I was really like, it was just a toy for me. I wasn't using it to do anything. It was just like funny prompts and sending it to my friends in Discord. But it has improved so much,
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's
quickly.
crazy.
And I have friends who have used it for work to like concept stuff, and like their clients are like, where did you did you make this? Can we use this? And it's like, well, yeah, you can. No, I didn't. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
But it's like a great starting point to be able to get just visually your thoughts onto the screen, kind
Yeah.
of like with Klutz GPT. It's like, I have this thing, I want you to do it. Can you do it? It's like getting it into the computer. So I'm just viewing AI as a tool, not something to be feared. Like, yeah, it can replace some people's jobs. It could cut out some roles, but
Yeah.
you need to be the person to learn how to use it so that when the client is like, we don't know how to get the AI to do this, it's like, well, I do. Like I can totally be your prompt engineer, or I can
Right.
be use Adobe Firefly. That's going to be integrated into the programs, I'm sure.
Oh, 100%. I
I'm
mean,
on the
they've
beta
got,
right
like,
now.
the-
Like it,
Yeah,
like
fun.
it's gonna happen. So like there's no stopping it. You should just be embracing it, learning
Yeah.
as much about it as you can. And that's why I'm like, well, I'm gonna teach you. I'm gonna learn it. I'm gonna teach you how to do it.
I love that.
Yeah,
That-
it
and you're
is.
totally right. You can't put it back in the box.
No.
This doesn't go away. And I know a lot of people have been really concerned about it, and especially from that like losing your job mentality. To me, it's always kind of felt like, well, I kind of feel like if your job is able to be done by this at this point, it was kind of inevitable that that was going to be replaced by something, whether it was a plugin or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. For Noah and I, we'll sit there when we're trying to concept design wise. We'll already have some idea of some motion that we could do based on like a VO or whatever. We'll sit there with our eyes closed, just trying to visualize it. And then we will make our motion script. Like we will write down what we expect it to look like. So then to be able to put that in to something like Midjourney or Adobe Firefly or DALL-E 2 or whatever, and then just have like baseline options of compositions and things is life-changing. That saves so much time. And for me this week, we've been slammed on a couple projects, and so still having to put thumbnails together for content. I'm like, I don't have to spend hours doing this. I can just get some like prompts in Adobe Firefly or something for like 20 minutes and then make it work, you know? We don't
Right.
have to sit there and just be super meticulous over things that just could be automated at this point. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and the people who are afraid of this stuff, like I think there's a couple of parallels that we can look at. Like, remember when taxis were the way you got around, then Uber and Lyft came in, and
Right.
all the cab drivers got really angry. But
Yeah.
it's like it happened. Like you can't change it, and so a
Yeah.
lot of taxi drivers started doing Uber and Lyft. I think that same thing is about to happen with auto driving cars. Like suddenly this whole industry of like Uber and Lyft, they're gonna get shook up. So instead of like fearing that, they're like, well, we're gonna start making our own self-driving cars. Like you gotta adopt this new technology and not like
Yeah.
protest it. Because going back even further, I heard this story about You know how elevators used to have operators?
Right.
You would get in and somebody
Oh,
would
yeah.
operate it. Eventually, automatic elevators became a thing and nobody wanted to use them. They're like, I can't operate an elevator. That's that guy's job. Like, I'm not going to push the button and trust this thing. And eventually, people started using it, and the elevator operators got really ticked off, and they
Yeah.
went on strike. They're like, we're not going to stand for this, and nobody wanted to walk upstairs. So they're like, oh well, I'll push the button, and that entire industry went away.
Yeah.
There were no more elevator operators.
Darn these
Like,
newfangled buttons. Ah.
yeah, like that's just how it went. I don't think that's the case with AI and motion design. I
No.
don't think that that is going to replace us. It's just a thing we're gonna have to adopt and learn how to take advantage of.
I guess I look at it now like AI is giving us GPS, and before we've just had to use maps. You know,
Yeah.
like we're
Yeah.
still gonna have to get from point A to point B and figure all that out. But at least we have something that can just make that process easier. You know.
It's streamlining the process of getting what's in our head on paper on the screen.
But you still
Right.
have to have it in your head to begin with.
Therefore, it's just a tool, and like, yeah, it's just gonna raise the bar for creative a little bit, and I think some people are a little scared of that.
I think templates is a great example of that too.
Yeah,
It's like I had
absolutely.
clients that knew what templates were, and they even said we want to use this template, but they weren't the ones going into After Effects and customizing that template.
Right.
They're like, we still need you to go in and do this. We like the thing, but you change it so it fits our project. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. It's similar, honestly. It's a little industrial revolution vibes. Like that, those machines put a lot of sowers and a lot of farmers out of business.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were a lot of people very upset, but it's like, it's not gonna stop. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
humanity's gonna move on, man.
Yeah.
You just
It's-
gotta hop on board.
It's wild seeing all of this stuff come to fruition too, because Noah and I, one of our first projects for review was with this company called Elemental Cognition, and they are an offshoot of the old IBM Watson team, basically, and they just started their own thing. And so when they're explaining it to us, I mean, we were in college at the time, so it was like we were having double lectures on those days because they were having to like try so hard to teach us what the hell this was about. This is like 2 years ago, and they're telling us like, no, you can like type these things in and it understands like the how and the why, and like it's basically like a 5-year-old right now. Like it can understand children's stories, like Jack put the lunchbox in the bag in the car, and it's able to understand like why Jack might do that or something like that. But at the time, no one are like, haha, yes, very nice, cool AI thing, and we got like some of the gist, but actually seeing just how quickly it's progressed, and now seeing something like a chat GPT as opposed to this thing that was mostly just going to be used for like commercial, industrial, B2B stuff is just mind-blowing. That's one of the things I've always loved about motion, is that like, because the industry is still pretty small, like it's still a relatively small amount of people that are like doing client projects and that sort of thing. We're just able to meet with all of these different companies and learn about all sorts of technology that we just would not have known about otherwise until like everybody's already using it. You know, you get like a little sneak preview sometimes and just crazy stuff. It's wild.
I feel very lucky.
Yeah. What a fun creative amalgamation
Good industry.
our industry is.
Yeah, for real.
Wild. Cool. Well,
Well, we should jump into a little crit.
we best crit some things.
We
shall
best crit some things. If you
Right.
have glasses near on your desk.
Oh, I had a pair that were my daughter's.
Snap. Dude, that
she
would
took
be...
them.
nuts.
Oh, that would have been perfect for this
Ah.
opportunity. I
Tragic.
apologize.
No, it's we didn't tell you. You know, it's okay.
Yeah,
All good.
jumped it on you.
We did. All right, well,
All right.
here we go. We are critiquing a singular showreel today from Callum Canarella, and we will give it a go.
It's kind of fun.
Orb. Love me some orb. It's always 30 seconds exactly,
Yep,
man.
right,
I
30
tell
seconds.
every time.
Well done.
Well done indeed. Callum makes fantastic work. So I knew it was gonna be good, and I was like, maybe this is one that will finally get me past the 30-second mouse hover. Just not quite. It just didn't quite get there.
Yeah.
I think it's more of just a structural thing with reels as opposed to the actual work in them for me at this point. It really is just like up until the point where I feel like I understand the breadth of the work and capabilities. I feel like I already got to that point within 30 seconds, you know? And I think I was right. Like the stuff that I was seeing after that had still been shown in glimpses at the beginning. So I generally understood the gist. So I would say, Callum, you could probably cut it down, but also all of your work is really great. So I would just try and slim it down just a little bit more, just a teeny little bit more, just so people will get through the whole thing to at least be able to see your. Like, actually, you show your website at the beginning too, I think. So, yeah. Well, you show your email anyway, but maybe just slim it down just a little bit more, and that would be
I got a
my
piece or two of feedback.
main
but,
piece of feedback. Go for it.
But first, I'm gonna open the floor. What you got, Jake?
Oh, thank God, the floor was so closed before.
Yeah, it was really closed.
I'm so trained to give my students positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna have anything negative to say about this. But honestly, I mean, this is so much better of a reel than I've ever made. Like your body of work. In the first 5 seconds, I was like, I would hire this guy. It's amazing. The keyframes, I can tell how much work you put into it. And this goes back to me saying, like, I learned After Effects. I didn't have any foundation in motion. It was when I took animation boot camp that I learned principles and understood why something looked good when it moved. When you guys had Jorge on a few weeks ago, or a week ago or whatever, I mentioned in the chat that his Crazy Enough piece, which was just circles and squares, that is what was the like light bulb moment that I had. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I have no idea how he did this. I know it was in After Effects. I don't understand. And that's when I was like, I need to figure out what I'm missing here. And that's when I went from knowing After Effects to pursuing animation and learning about principles. But that clearly in this reel, Callum, like I can see that you already understand that. You have a great design sense. I love the color palette of every single one of these frames. Nothing feels like there's so much going on, but I'm not like being distracted. I feel like I'm seeing what you're meaning for me to see in every shot. So yeah, well done.
Boom.
So good use of tracking the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wow. A lot kinder than our feedback usually.
Like I said, I'm trained on this. Like Skillshare, unless somebody specifically says, how can I improve this? It's always, great job. Thanks for making a project.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you. People know what they're getting into when they said these to us. We always hit them with the boom roasted at the end. So everybody's
I do
on it.
agree that the animation is very polished, and you do a great job of tracking the eye. I will also say some of the cuts in clips are a little bit off timed with the music. So you could tighten those up a little bit. There's one section where you show a square piece of work, which has been a rec on the show.
It has.
It's
It was like a couple days ago, actually.
But it doesn't fill the screen super well. Maybe some sort of tiling or zoom in a little bit more there.
This part
right here.
Yeah.
Could make that a little bit interesting. But like that square being so static on the screen kind of takes us out of this very dynamic movement that you got throughout the rest of the reel.
Right.
And so it feels like it kind of stops us a little bit, even though that piece of work is one of my favorite things you've done. So I want to see that emphasized a little more. And then, yeah, you could cut it down a little bit more as well. But honestly, fantastic reel.
Yeah, this is a phenomenal reel. Wonderful.
Banger. Boom roasted, but also
boom roasted, kind of very slightly toasted, just barely.
Toasted.
Yeah, just boom toasted. There you go. Well, there's our crypt for today. Now we got to do our recs. We got 2 recs to get through. First,
Am I supposed to have one?
Oh no, you don't have to have one. Don't worry.
Oh no. No,
I'm just gonna
no.
yeah. So here's our rec for the day. This is just one of 2. Don't worry.
Okay.
We have more. Here we go.
Yep.
Did everyone use this song? I thought I was original when I did this. I swear. But this is from 2013, man. Like, I didn't even know. It's amazing.
Deadly tornadoes.
You wanna? What year was that? That was 2000. What did that say?
2013, I think.
2013.
Yeah.
I have one from even further back. If you
Really?
Yes.
It's 19
Right
seconds
away.
long.
I would love
yes,
that.
Yes, please. That would be
I don't know
amazing.
why I'm doing this. It's on my personal YouTube. But I'm gonna give it to you.
Exposed.
Beautiful.
I love it.
All right, I gave it to you in Discord.
Oh, that's amazing. All right, we got it.
It's the kind of stuff.
Yes, let's go.
Yeah.
Whoa, wait, why is my YouTube?
Oh my god, how did you do that?
I don't even know. All right, there we go.
Oh, it's because it's letterboxed in like 4x3 and
Yeah. Is that a
Yes.
lime?
Dude, let's go.
yeah,
Yes.
kinetic typography.
The artist. I love him. Oh my god, I need that little
Wow.
spinning metal guy like on my desk right now.
Wow.
I think he's in my closet. That was an award from my college that they give to the few people who try.
That's so good, man. There's just such a look to like those couple years of time in motion.
Yeah.
It's like
Can you tell
2007 to 2009 or just like this exact look, you know? It's
Yeah.
wild.
Everybody,
Please tell me. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say this was the period of like I'm learning After Effects. Like this is amazing. I can make a camera thing. Like that first move with the text. I was like, how can I make this intro interesting? Oh, wobbly camera. Like yeah, it was very
Oh, yeah.
just learn as I go kind of thing. But yeah.
Can you tell me about the limes and lemons that you got
Yeah,
going on
so-
at the beginning? I'm very interested.
So I had these two friends. They were twins in college that had a band called oh my gosh, I'm blanking. It's on my website. But it was they wanted me to make an animated video for their one of their songs, and it was that I did it in Adobe Flash, or not Adobe Flash, Macromedia Flash at the time.
Whoa.
Wow.
That's the first animation software that I learned. I'm trying to find. I did another more recent one for them. It was Floor Plan is the name of the band. But I did another one for them after we had graduated and I was living in LA, and but that was my very first little thing. The
That's
illustrations
amazing.
were actually done by their dad. Just like
What?
sketches on paper, and then I converted them in Flash to what you're seeing and then animated them that way.
That is
That's impressive.
wild.
Yeah.
I want to take this and pitch it to Sprite as an
Yes.
ad campaign. I think that would be phenomenal. You know?
Yeah.
Hey, neo-brutalism is in. This could totally fit the bill. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
I like the
That's
little
amazing.
green guy. He's my favorite.
I love that. Well, there's one rec. Well, I guess
Yeah.
kind of two recs, and then everybody's got to go check out
Hey.
Jake's video that we were already talking about earlier. I'm not gonna play it now since we are limited on time, but everybody best be checking out Jake's video on GPT, Clutch GPT, and or Chat GPT.
Yeah.
The whole GPT-ism of it all.
Right.
Mhm.
Those are our recs. There it is.
Thanks, guys.
We probably have
And,
like
of course, GPT stands for
get punked.
go
Teenagers.
peek that YouTube channel.
That's a great question. I actually don't know what it stands for.
I don't
just told
either.
you. I just told you.
Well,
Oh, what does GPT and AI stand for? Generative Pre-trained Transformer 3.
Okay.
so basically
Generative.
just the next Michael Bay film. Got it.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
a spoiler. Really weird that they hit it in that, but that's okay.
Strange.
That's fine.
Strange how pop culture works. I don't know. Michael Bay's weird. Jeez.
Well, wonderful. We can do like a couple more questions from the chat real quick.
You guys have that.
Ask me anything.
Ask him anything right now.
Open book.
Dude, he told us he's an open book.
Please.
So skim through the pages.
There you go. There you go.
Rucky says, which I guess is just kind of a general question for all of us. Do you guys reckon match cuts are a must technique to master for every project? Not necessarily. I just really enjoy them. I think I just got hooked on them pretty immediately once I started doing motion. Oh, that was just another thing I wanted to mention. You were talking about how how you were getting started earlier in the programs and things you were using. I did not learn After Effects originally. I was far too scared, but I did have Photoshop and I didn't know Premiere. So I would sit there and do type animation by selecting my type in Photoshop, turning the layer off, and then filling it in by making my brush size bigger frame by frame and sequencing it all in Windows Movie Maker instead. So, and my easing was me literally sitting there just like with my calculator doing math on like how far I should like move the position or something by being like, I guess double the previous one will probably make it look faster. I don't know.
That's amazing.
But
I didn't even think about easing for the longest time. I
Yeah.
remember one time watching Andrew Kramer open up the graph editor. I was like, "Why are you going in there? That's not fun."
What's that?
Yeah,
that looks scary. Ew.
F9, man.
Is there a way that you get people to really remember that it's important to ease your stuff properly?
Yeah, I tell them to do it immediately now.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
so the latest class that I made for School of Motion was supposed to be, it's called After Effects for Editors, and it was very like, we got to take it slow. We cannot, like, this is for people who are afraid of After Effects.
Right.
And I started making the first lesson with keyframes, and I just went to Kyle, who is the producer on the project, Kyle Hamrick. He's like, I can't, in good faith, just tell them to easy ease. Like, I'm
This
sorry.
is just wrong.
I have to take a little tangent and explain for 5 minutes. It's not that hard. And so that's literally in the lesson, that's literally what I did. I was like, this looks scary. I understand. It's not that difficult, but you don't even have to understand it. Just watch what I'm doing and do what I do. You're going to see me do it for the rest of this course. Uh-oh, my camera overheated.
It happens.
I'm still here though. If you can hear me, I'm going to switch cameras to my webcam.
Yeah, you're all good.
But yeah, I was just like, watch this in the graph editor. And it was the speed graph only. I didn't even get into the value graph.
Yeah.
Speed graph.
It was fine. So, yeah, that's how I handle it. I just tell them, I was like, look, it looks scary, but it's not that hard. It's just speed. Like, it's a graph. You'll get it.
If graph tall, speed high. If graph low, speed low. Aha.
Here we go. I'm back.
Oh my god.
This is the problem that I'm facing right now, is that I've got like this setup that I feel really good about for production, but my camera overheats. It's not even recording. It's just outputting an HDMI feed and it overheats.
And it's not even that it has like a hot light on it or anything. It just decides to overheat. That's wild.
Yeah.
Which
so
camera are you
strange.
using? Because I saw.
I have the Sony ZV-1.
Oh, it was an Elgato capture card. Gotcha.
Yes. So
see.
I got the 4K capture card so that it could. I had a little like $20 1080p one, but I was like reading into it. I was like, if you get the capture card, you can do 4K plus. It takes the load off of the USB stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I'll just get the card.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we used to use, or Noah has the camera now, but when we would do our show from the couch that's over there, like we have a whole set, we just haven't used it in months since Noah and I haven't been in the office together. We used EOS webcam utility just over USB, and so it would just like cycle every 20 minutes. So it would just like turn off for a second, turn back on. So it was a thing on the stream, be like EOS webcam utility anytime it happened. It was great, fun. Miss those days just a little bit.
I fully don't know why we haven't been asking our guests this, because we should have been.
I know.
So you'll be the first. Do you prefer your value graph or speed graph?
Oh,
if you can only choose one, if you
here
can
we
only
go.
choose one, let's get into it. Put your dukes up.
And there is a right answer,
Okay,
but go
so
ahead.
here's I know there's a right answer. So if Adobe was like, look, we're getting rid of one of them, like, what are you voting for? I would say keep the speed graph. That's
Kind of roundabout way to say that the speed graph is better, but you know that's okay.
Yeah,
that's fine.
It is better. Why though? Why?
Yeah, so the why, and I do have a why. It's because I can use the speed graph on any number of keyframes all at once.
Right.
I hate doing overshoots with the speed graph though. Like, so I would hate it if I lost the value graph.
Right.
I prefer to move things around using a motion path. I think that's a little bit more intuitive to the way that I animate. Can't do that if I separate dimensions. And then I have to deal with the value graph or even the speed graph on the X and Y separately.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to keep my position generally together. and Adam has a different opinion. So like everybody feels differently, and I think that's just part of this whole process. Is like you can use the tool how you want to. There may be better ways to do whatever you're doing, but I mean, I've been doing this for like 15 years now. I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on when using the speed graph is totally acceptable because
Yeah.
it's saving me more time, or it's easier to do something. Like
Right.
when I want
Easier.
something like a paper airplane is like a perfect example. Joey did this example in Animation Bootcamp, but having that float around the screen and being able to just draw the path you want it to take
Yeah.
and then choose how fast it moves at any point instead of my y-axis isn't lining up with my x, and so yeah. But like I said, the flip side, overshoots, bounces, like value graph makes way more sense to me. So
Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Totally
That's
fair.
very fair. Yeah, I agree with most of that.
And I mean, a lot of After Effects truly is just down to like whatever we started doing first anyway, you know, like we'll certainly learn some new things along the way, but a lot of the way that I still work is just because like I found some really quick, easy, jank ways to get things done when I started. And that's just how I've been doing it for a while now.
Yeah. Just do overshoot with more keyframes.
yeah, I mean, that's how I did it in the beginning. I would literally download a video and frame by frame just mimic it. I'm like, I don't know how you got it to look this way. And that was, I remember specifically an overshoot. I was like, I don't know why it looks so cool. So just frame by frame, I copied it. I was like, okay, so that's what the keyframes look like. I'm just going to do that anytime I want it to look like this.
Yep.
That was my mind of like, I didn't have the foundation. I didn't know these principles, and I didn't understand decay curves and like all this stuff. So it took me a lot longer to get where I wanted to be at that point.
Yeah.
Well, we are pretty much out of time. I have one last little question that we do actually ask everyone. And it is, of course, if you had one single piece of advice to give to your younger self, what would you throw them? What would you throw their way?
Yeah, I had a hard time with this question. I was trying to think about it too because there's so many little things. I'm just so happy with where I am in life, like what I get to do and the family that I have and where I'm currently living. So I wouldn't want to change too much, but I think I would just say start teaching sooner because ultimately that's what I've found that I enjoy the most. And so I guess you heard my story. So like the way that it happened is how it ended up perfectly. So I don't think I'd want to change much, but anyone can teach. That would be the advice I'd give. Like you don't have to have that kind of master's level experience or under your belt. Like if you know how to do something, you can teach somebody.
Your knowledge is worth something. There you go.
It's good. And imposter syndrome just flew out the window just then. It was
Right.
just
There it
that
goes.
easy. I know.
I just saw it go.
Also,
Incredible.
what do you want? Where can we find you? What do you want to plug? Is
Got
there
anything
anything
to
you want to
plug?
mention?
Find me anywhere online at JakeInMotion. YouTube is where I'm most active, I think. My website's JakeInMotion, but it just filled with old things. My homepage is my 2018 reel, which is the most recent reel I've had. But yeah, JakeInMotion anywhere. Hit me up anytime. I guess I'll drop a little bit of like secret. I have a Discord server reserved, and I'm prepping it out to have a community
Sneaky
centered
secret.
around After Effects and motion design stuff. So
Love it.
Cool.
Love it.
yeah.
Sweet.
Oh, goodness
So keep your
gracious.
peepers open and locked for
Keep your
that.
peepers peeping, y'all.
And on that note, that's the
That's
show.
Yay.
Thanks for hanging, y'all. If you want to get your work critiqued in future shows, there's a link in the description to do that. It takes you to a Google form. Also, the link to our Discord is in the description, but we'll probably just change it to Jake's once that happens.
why
And
not?
then aside from that, use hashtag Daily Motion Show when you post on socials, and we just might wreck it.